Welcome to this episode of Why Pals Tales from the Superyacht Laundry. I am very pleased to introduce this episode's guest, Charlotte Goord. Now, I've been I actually stalked you before I knew you because of the interesting things that you went off to do. But how are you doing today? Are you looking forward to this?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Be interesting to see what we have to say. But looking forward to the podcast.
It's like I said, I really do remember stalking you before I knew you, which is kind of weird, and I don't know whether you should admit such things on the podcast. But obviously, Pearls of Wisdom is always about what women have gone on to do next, and I do find, in my experience, now speaking to what you've gone on to do next is quite unique. Not many have gone off to do it. But before we go on to what you're doing now, how's about you tell us what was Charlotte doing before the industry, and how did the opportunity to work on board come about?
Yeah, so when I was finishing a business degree at Hartpury University in Gloucester, and kind of didn't know what to do, kind of having that moment, or I was really sort of prepared. I was like, okay, I need to sort this out now before I finish, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So I sort of had a whole plan of looking at different stuff. I was talking to a load of sort of event management companies, wedding companies as well, to sort of think, I'm going to go down that route because I sort of enjoyed that event sort of management side. And then sort of had something in place in London with a company, and then was waiting for a start date. I was thinking, why waiting weeks and weeks for a start date to come through? And then it never came through, and I sort of sent a few emails, and sort of they ghosted me, and then they finally came back to be like, oh yeah, we've taken someone else. And I was like,
oh no,
okay.
Didn't think to tell you.
No, exactly. Just no, we weren't going to sort of pay. It was just an internship or anything. Doesn't matter. So it was kind of one of those oh dear moments where I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do now? And then I'd had a couple of friends who I'd sort of seen on Facebook. They were sort of doing yachting, or they were away in America and everything. I was like, oh, that looks quite nice. I'm quite intrigued about that. So I sent a couple of messages to them to sort of say, oh, what is it? What do you do? And everything. And they told me about sort of the STCW. So I looked into that, and it came up that the next week there was one sort of 15 minutes down the road in Paynton to me. So I was like, yeah, right, I'll book on it. So I did. So
that's quite mad, isn't it? Is it like, so you at school and everything, so you always been interested in business? Like, was that, because obviously businesses can be quite general, but you always had an entrepreneurial brain, or was it, you just, what made you do business at school?
Yeah, I thought sort of business, every company or every business needs sort of a business acumen, that kind of stuff, really. So the business side had always sort of intrigued me, because it didn't matter what industry you're in, the business acumen you always need it, really. So I thought, at least with that, you can sort of diversify into lots of different things, really. So that's sort of why I went down the business route. And then I kind of thought, I sort of really enjoy planning and sort of being sort of at the administration side. So I thought, sort of event wedding planning would sort of really suit me. I enjoy all that kind of stuff. I used to do, I was sort of head of equine socials for the Equestrian Academy at Hartpury, and so that kind of all sort of snowballed, and I thought I'd really enjoy that. And then obviously when that didn't happen, I was like, oh no, what am I going to do now? And then sort of got the STCW, did my ENG1, and then sort of flew out to Antibes for, I think I was there about 3 weeks a month. Which was, loved it. Met so many amazing people at sort of the crew house and everything.
Where did you stay in Antibes?
Oh, I can't remember. It was quite it was through the grapevine. But I think it was 3 properties, and we were in one of them right by the port. So yeah,
Were
that's
you
really good.
portside? Were you portside or
I think it was,
seaside? It's very important.
yeah, I think it was portside, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm very territorial about this. You know, I've got we talk about this a lot. I'm 100% portsider.
Yeah, I
So yeah.
think it was that one. Yeah, but yes, that was really good fun. And then I flew. I did obviously some day work and stuff there. Did the Monaco boat show and stuff up there, which was amazing. Yeah, some crazy stories there.
So you obviously went to Antibes. What was your first impression? Because I'm getting, you're kind of quite a rural girl, sleepy little town, loves the horses, and then you're catapulted to the French Riviera. What do you remember
Yeah.
thinking at the time? Or did you just love
Well,
the adventure?
yeah. Well, I've travelled quite a lot as it was because my family were in the travel business and everything. So I'd sort of grown up on a plane and been to like lots of different countries and have sort of travelled quite a lot. So that side of it was like, oh yeah, this is easy. This is absolutely fine. And then sort of getting there and be like, I live here for however long or whatever. It was a bit of an interesting way of life. And you sort of get there and you're like, oh, I have to cook myself and like meet all these new people who you just have to live with them. So that was luckily we had quite a nice group when we were there. But it was sort of very weird, strange time. So people are like, oh yeah, you have to go out dock walking and all this, and then so obviously you can't dock walk to like the big boats in Antibes because obviously they're all out of sight and through a gate. But sort of we went over to what's the port just down the road? Cannes. I remember doing some dock walking in Cannes, and that was like just like buttering down like a little CD, and no one took one, but like 3 like people were like, oh yeah, no, we're all crewed up, yeah, and it's like, oh, can you just take it? But yeah, so that was quite an experience. And then working at the Monaco boat show was really good fun. Did a couple of days there, and so it kind of gave you that sort of appetite for what it could be like.
So you tried to get a job quite late in the season, by the sounds of it.
No, it was I can't remember what. I think it was March. No, it would have been September. Yeah, because it's Monaco boat show.
Yeah. It's quite a tricky time to try and get on board. For European boats.
Yeah. So there was a lot of us at the time. I think I went out in August. Probably it was, and then was there for the Monaco boat show, and and then literally came back from my graduation, and then the day of my graduation, I had the captain of a boat ring and asked me all these questions, and then they pretty much gave me the job then and there. So that was really surreal to be like, I'll come back and then take a phone call on the day of my graduation to be like, oh yeah, and then I flew out to the Middle East a week later. So
wow, to the Middle East. So that's where you started your journey. Was it a big boat?
It was a fleet. So it was a fairly big boat, but then we were all in apartments and everything, so we didn't actually have to live on board, which was quite nice.
How was it working out in the Middle East? Obviously out in Dubai was quite a different kind of experience. Oh, Doha. Oh wow.
Yeah, I loved it actually. I've been to Dubai before, so kind of the culture shock wasn't really there. But no, I loved it. It was like really social, really good fun. We could walk into like the city centre malls and everything. And it was really, really good fun. Like there's people still out there that I still sort of get on really well with. And I know if I ever was out there, I could go and stay with them or anything. It was a bit weird because obviously out in the Middle East, their weekends are like Friday and Saturday, and then they start week on a Sunday. So that sort of takes some time to get your head round. But it's genuinely like I've never felt safer like walking around like in the middle of the night or whatever, if you've been out or something and coming back, you never felt like you were, like, I wouldn't do that in London or anything. So
No,
yeah.
which is quite ironic, really, isn't it? Yeah, you would have thought that it would be the other way around, but not in the current climate. So obviously your first impression of yachting is out in the Middle East. What do you remember, like, getting used to? Like, what part of the job? Well, because you weren't even on board. Like, so you were in an apartment. So what were your first, like, few trips and stuff like?
So we were actually on, like, the biggest, not the biggest boat, the busiest boat of the fleet. So we were out, like, every weekend. So you quickly, it was quite a nice routine, actually, because it was like you had to do, it was like the same thing every week because the boat was going to go out. So it was just like, it was quite nice out there because you actually had, like, you did have sort of a weekend after you'd come off the trip. You'd have the 2 days off and then you'd go back, literally have like the 3 days or whatever to turn the boat round, and then off you went again. So it was quite a nice routine that we used to get into, and, like, they'd owned the boat for like 18 years or something. So and, like, some of the crew had been on there for like 10 years and whatever. So, like, people knew what was going on. So that was quite nice. It was just kind of fitting into sort of where you were on board. But and things ran really smoothly on there. So it wasn't sort of a bit hectic where people were like, I don't know what's going on and that kind of stuff. But I remember being down there in the laundry one day and just laundering and ironing away and being like, okay, this is my life now for X amount of time, which is kind of a weird sort of appreciation to have. Just, yeah.
It's kind of a pinch yourself moment. I am where on the planet and I'm doing what? Okay.
Yeah, not much ironing in a little room. But yeah, it was a good, I think, first experience and like the captains we had out there and all the crew were absolutely amazing. So I think we were quite spoiled in that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's, it can make such a difference, that first boat and that first impression, So how long did you last on there?
So I did a year on that one, and I'd always sort of wanted to do kind of a year on my first boat and then sort of go on to the sort of the next chapter, really. But there's, like, people still out there. They absolutely love it. A lot of people sort of had their families out there as well, so they could sort of really make sort of a lifestyle out of it. But I think it was a great first experience, definitely.
Yeah. But you fancied travelling somewhere else? What was the urge to move? I suppose it's not, like, after a little while, you've done all of the local areas. If you're only going away for a weekend, there's not far you can go, is there, really?
And to live in Doha long term is quite, it's quite something, because obviously it's so different to the UK, and just the weather, like, it's like your lungs as well, because you never really feel like you're in fresh air. I remember, like, coming back and just being like, oh my God, the Devon air, like, is just amazing. It's really, really weird. But it's like when people go skiing and, like, the alpine, like, fresh air people absolutely love. And it was that kind of coming back and being like, oh, the air smells different. So to live out there. Yeah.
It's the tree.
Yeah.
Like, if you've spent your life living around a lot of trees, like, this is the depths of winter, but when spring comes, it's like you're getting, a massive hit of extra oxygen, because it's just, all encompassing. And when you go to arid places, even in Spain, it's lovely, but there is a difference in the air, there really is.
There's so much air conditioning out there. So you're going in a car, you're going to the mall, it's air conditioned, you walk out, like, how many of us strides to the back into the car with more air conditioning. So I think it does sort of take its toll on your body as well. Whereas, you come back to, like, the UK or something and it's like, oh God, like, air and birds is just amazing.
I think that's one of the things that people don't, it's not really talked about often when you're in the interior, just to get out on deck and breathe because you are you could, especially on charter, if you're like a laundry steward or whatever, housekeeping, to make the conscious effort to go outside and take a few breaths is going to, don't underestimate its power, because air conditioning all the time, it's not
good for you.
Great.
Our first sort of, I think 2 or 3 trips, I'd never actually went outside. So I remember, because obviously we went to a certain destination every week, and then I remember one of the captains was like, "Have you been outside yet?" I was like, no, I haven't. He was like, "Go outside." So it's just weird how you just get into your little, like, this is what I'm doing, and like, cabin fever.
Cabin fever, definitely. So you left Doha to go. Where did you end up?
So I went out to Australia and spent some time out of Australia, and I was doing sort of some day charter work out for it was to do with the sort of casinos out there. They'd have boats that you could charter out for a period of time or a day or whatever. So I was doing some stuff out there. So that was a weird time, like some very strange sort of guests on board those boats. And then sort of after that, I moved to the Mediterranean and went on, we ended up in the Caribbean on a proper charter boat, which was an interesting.
Day boats is slightly different, isn't it? Like it's a day of carnage. If you ever think about, I'm going for a bottomless brunch, that's obviously, do you know what I mean? People, their mentality is completely different, as if they're like, if they're there for a week or 2 weeks. It's a bit like managing a pub, I imagine.
Pub on steroids. I think that a couple of the charters, like the just amount of sheer champagne they went through was just astronomical. Like,
do you find they were hard, obviously, because everybody getting on board would be drunk, so is that a harder situation to manage as a crew member?
Yes and no. I think they're easier to sort of, you can kind of herd them into one area and then they'll just stay there, and then you can just sort of just provide them whatever they want. Whereas sometimes if they come on, they all kind of disperse, and then it's trying to keep up with everyone. What everyone wants can be a little bit more challenging. But but then sort of later in the day, when they decide they want to go everywhere else and places that they shouldn't, then it becomes a bit more challenging.
It's like how trying to handle a group of toddlers. Just follow the bottle of champagne. Follow the champagne. Come on, let's go over here. Look, it's champagne. I imagine that's quite challenging. It's amazing you got to go to Australia, because obviously that's quite a tight visa situation.
I was out there on a working holiday visa, and then sort of just living in Australia and traveling, and then there were some boats out there that I would then go and sort of work on whilst I was out there. So it was kind of best of both worlds, really.
That's really good. Working holiday visa, honestly, I highly recommend for anybody. Obviously, it's a completely different style of travel. I was explaining to somebody the other day, when you say that you're staying in a hostel in Australia, most images of a hostel are the European ones, which is not the same thing. Hostels in Australia are fun places. They have bars, they have games, they have activities, they have pools. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to spend, you don't have to sleep in the room with 8 people in it. So you can get private rooms, but it's not in the hostel sense. It's a different kind of, and highly recommended at the same time. Oh wow, you've done your working holiday visa. Did you have to do fruit picking when that was there, or did they cancel that?
No, because I was only out there for a year. So if you want to extend it, then you have to do the fruit picking or agricultural work. They've actually scrapped that now as well, and you can do extra I think 3rd year now as well.
I know, they've changed it all. It's gutting. I would have stayed.
Yeah.
I think they've extended. You can be 35 as well, because it used to be 30.
Yeah, you can go up to 35 now, yeah.
I looked into the group picking. I was just like, no.
Mm.
I was already a mature traveller. It was living in a hut in the middle of nowhere with a whole bunch of kids.
And the spiders
drinking.
and the snakes and no.
With them just in a cabin drinking goon all the time if they're not picking fruit. Like, it would be like permanently being stuck on one of your day charters, but with less classy people. After sweating it out all day. So then you got on to what we would probably class as a normal charter vessel.
Yeah.
How was that experience when you got to really understand how it works?
Yes, well, I think ours was slightly different because it did end up being one of the longest charters.
No.
That was the first red flag. Well, actually, no, the first red flag was I spoke to a friend who was a chef and said, "Oh, I'm out here, whatever, and what's this boat or whatever?" And she was like, "Oh, I know someone who worked on that boat." And then she went and spoke to them. And she was like, "Get off that boat." And I was like, "Oh no, oh God." And yeah, that was the first red flag. Yeah, and I thought, oh, I'll just see how it goes. And then it was literally a week after that conversation, we went on charter. So I didn't have anywhere to go. So I just had to. Yeah. Yeah, and it did turn out to be just like stuff when you were interviewed just didn't turn out to be true. Like, you just knew you were lied to from the get-go. And yeah, so that was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And like, the crew were in bits. It was like such a toxic environment it got to on board. It was really bad by the end.
Well, you're not designed to work continuously, you know. You're not meant to just be constantly working like that with no days off. Like, it happened to me once on my first boat. And the whole situation lasted 2.5 months, but it was so long. Like, even with the crew that gets on, it literally pushes the boundaries of tolerance with everybody, and exhaustion, and your nutrition goes out the window. I'm not surprised they had to lie to get you on there.
Yeah, and we had the nicest guests for that charter. They were so easy. It was 3 guests. They were absolutely amazing. Couldn't fault them. And we had to go on charter hours about 2 to 3 days before the charter started, so that we were used to it. And then a 4-month charter was
4 months. Oh, well, your hats off to you. Like, if you can get through that, you could probably handle Guantanamo Bay. Like, it is a bit like floating prison in a way, at that kind of length of time. So I imagine, like, if you kind of had to summarize, like, working on board, what you loved and what you found challenging. Challenging is the trip where they didn't get off.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember, it was just crazy, and we were on anchor, so you couldn't even do anything. It was just it was I think, and I remember one day they came to the we all got called to the bridge, and they extended the trip, and genuinely most of the crew cried, which is that was quite harrowing.
How can they not, like, as a captain, like, how can he, not see that? Like, I imagine when the trip ended, everybody quit.
Quite a lot of people quit. I think it was only really the Hods that stayed. Yeah, and having spoken to some people within the industry after, it's like, they knew the situation, knew the boat. Like, yeah, it wasn't an anomaly.
That's it. That's a bit annoying. So who do you reckon was lying? Was it the recruiter or the captain, or a bit of both?
Mainly sort of captain and chief stew, because obviously they wanted. I think a lot of the time recruiters don't really know what's going on, or the captain or whatever are very massage what they say and sort of, so they don't really know what's going on really. So yeah. So I wouldn't blame them at all. It wasn't their fault or anything. But yeah, it was just quite a harrowing experience.
So what did you like, looking back in the industry, what did you love the most about it?
The people mainly, like just everyone sort of has the same appreciation, and like especially the time with Doha, we all had similar interests, and it was just everyone sort of got on. I think a lot of it was because none of the crew ever played rank. It was just everyone just got on, and everyone was just nice and pleasant to be around. And then I sort of found from as soon as sort of boats start playing rank and people start, I'm whoever or whatever, then that's when everything starts to go wrong, because it doesn't matter how good you are at your job if your crew at the bottom aren't there to help you. It's pretty useless, to be honest. So I do find this sort of, when that sort of starts to derail, that's when sort of things do end up going wrong.
It's interesting when you say, when you reflect on that, because it's the team, you make it feel more like a team than a hierarchy. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, if you start playing too heavily in rank, it's not really, it takes away from like the team energy, and I think that's what we all become addicted to, because, there is a great camaraderie that you can't experience unless you go through something like that together. So when, if you cast your mind back, when did you start thinking, maybe I should start thinking about what I want to do next? When did you fall out? Did you fall out of love with the industry and go, no, I'm not sure?
I think after that boat, well, I got to the stage where being on that boat, obviously from the get-go, pretty much, it was, and people like saying, well, I mean, it was from day one, people were like, your chief stew's terrible. And then obviously speaking to someone who knew the boat as well, was like, get off it. From that kind of moment, it was like, okay. But I thought, all right, I know that, let's just get on with it. Let's see what happens. So I was quite positive in that frame of mind. And then sort of as it went on and on and on and on and on, yeah, and on, and everyone's just really struggling, then sort of, and I was in the position where I didn't have to be there. It's not like I had like extra bills, mortgages and everything that obviously keep a lot of people in the job roles they are. So from that point of view, I was like when it comes to the end, like I'm off, like. And then and then I did sort of have a family emergency, which was kind of the preemptor to that ending after the charter. So that was kind of a blessing in disguise, really, so that I could actually leave, because it did get to the point where they're like, well, there's no flights. And I was like, my family work and travel, there are flights. I know there are flights.
There's no flights. So what?
I mean, this was during COVID, so there was much less flights, but yeah, there were flights. So I did.
They can't stop you. You're not going to stop you from going home. Do you know what I mean? Like, limited flights maybe for tourists, but you're going home, so they can't stop you from going home.
Yeah, no, he did try. So I had to be quite firm in that instance, and I was like, well, I know there's flights, and I did have a couple of the crew come up to me and was like, are there flights? And I was like, yeah, there are flights. Like, yeah, don't let them try and tell you the. So that was quite difficult as well, because you lose trust in the whole situation then when that happens. So yeah, it was quite early on from then when I thought, okay, I need to sort of think of what the next option is, because I need to leave here for my own sort of mental health and everything. I just can't continue like this. And that it really sort of soured my experience at the end. But yeah, so it was from then that I was like, I'm just going to have to do something when I leave. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just like, I can't stay here.
Yeah, I mean, COVID was a tricky situation for lots of people, and, funny enough, the catalyst for a lot of people stepping off and doing something new, it provided the opportunity and maybe the shove some people needed to go, I don't want to do that, especially in these circumstances. The next chapter is on the horizon. So obviously you managed to get home because there are flights. Was it there you were kind of like, was that when you started to think, I don't want to go back, or how are you feeling?
Yeah. So that kind of soured the whole situation of obviously like being lied to when you like apply for the job and everything, speaking to a captain and chief steward, whatever it's like, and you're like, am I going to be stuck in this situation again? And like, how long do you go on? Obviously, the longer you do that, the harder it is to then get a job because of like all the references and like the gaps in your CVs and all of that start to show. And yeah, so I kind of was sort of stuck in a rut almost, thinking, oh, well, is it worth going back on board someone? Obviously, if I had, and then it was a great boat, then it could have been a complete different situation. But I wasn't really prepared to take that risk from the end. So it was, I came off, and I think I had like 2 days of just, I got home and I was like, oh, I've survived. And then it was pretty much then I was thinking, okay, I need to think of what am I going to do next. And there was actually a conversation with one of the chief stews on board on the boat. She was talking about horses and stuff, and like, and obviously I was vegetarian at the time, sort of now plant-based vegan, and her saying, oh, well, do you use leather and everything? I was like, well, you can't really escape it because there's like no options, or whatever. And then that's what kind of clicked in my mind to think when I came off that, oh, I wonder if there is like a different way. And that's sort of when things started to snowball, really.
So let's just highlight that. So your chief stew, was she interrogating you about why you're annoyingly a vegetarian? Like, because sometimes on board people get a bit like, it's a bit different now, but I know chefs back in my day didn't appreciate vegetarians at all. It was a bit annoying from their perspective.
Yeah. To be honest, the chefs we had on board were brilliant because they had like, for the charter guests, they had vegan menus, they had like everything, and he did a lot of vegan cooking. That's so from that point of aspect, they were brilliant, to be honest. But from a chef point of view, but and like some of the conversations sometimes it's like, I'm not interrogating you why you eat that or anything, so why are you interrogating me while I'm eating? So it does get a bit like that sometimes, and I think sometimes people kind of miss the point, or sometimes their own consciousness is trying to project of why they make it feel right to them and justify it. So so I sometimes just kind of have to sort of sometimes to play devil advocate or why they're doing that. But most of the time, I mean, those chefs on board were great. The first boat was a different story. But luckily we weren't on board all the time. So I could actually cook because the lunches on there were just abysmal.
I always feel quite lucky with my crew food, apart from one boat, was always quite good. But obviously I eat everything, so I've never had that challenge. Obviously things have changed so much, even in just the past few years. But obviously eating vegetarian and then avoiding leather in its entirety is a bit difficult, and you're horsey. So everything, bridles, saddles, I, in a previous life, when I was doing my work visa in Australia, I worked in a few livery yards. So that lovely wax on, wax off, softening it all up, all of the leather there. You can't get away from it. They don't even use anything else, I don't think. Most of the time you get plastic bits, but you don't get plastic stuff.
Yeah, it's more, I think endurance use like quite a lot of like webbing or stuff because it's easy to, I don't know why, to be honest, but that's the endurance side. But other than that, it's not really a thing. But yeah, a lot of the time it's people buy leather because they assume it will break, but most leather is such a poor quality. The amount of strength it takes to break is like a normal horse pulling its head up or something to try and escape. It still can't break it, so it kind of defeats the object of it, really.
So what was your idea?
So it was Equicork. So the early stages, it was sort of the whole idea was using sort of a leather alternative. So we did sort of end up going down the cork because we felt that was sort of the most environmentally friendly, because some of them do have sort of a plastic lining and coating on. So we wanted to avoid that if we could. And then sort of it started from like, do we do bridles? Do we do saddles? Do we do like tack, that kind of stuff? And then sort of as things went on and we were trying to research sort of manufacturers and dealing with manufacturing, which is a whole other story, and sort of doing all of that stuff, we sort of came to sort of like boots, because at the time I couldn't find sort of a nice pair of riding boots that weren't leather, and like you can get non-leather ones, but they look really naff. So that's sort of where I was with it, and then sort of going from that led to let's do footwear, and then we did the riding boots, and then we thought, we need to sort of branch out a bit more and do some different things. That's when we sort of looked at like country boots.
So are you going to like show like trade shows with different materials? Because obviously you're talking about manufacturing level. So I imagine you're going to trade shows where they're selling fabric, plastic, all of those kind of things to try and dig out anything that could be used. Is that right?
To be honest, it was mainly just Google and like looking through like manufacturer directories, which is a thing, and which I didn't realise beforehand, and just like scouring the internet trying to find out what were good materials and stuff, and just emailing. Like I originally wanted to have them made in the UK because I thought that would be the best thing or whatever. So I was sort of scouring. I must have sent thousands of emails to different people saying, would you be interested in this project? I even went to like the Guild of Leather People or whatever in the UK, who were actually very helpful. Being said that, and they said you're probably better going for like a younger sort of clientele to try and find you to make these products, because like the old boys in leather won't want to do it or whatever. And they were correct. So it was a lot of just Googling, a lot of just people just don't get back to you. Like they just point blank will not reply. Like not even oh no, sorry, we're not interested. Just just delete or whatever. So that was quite tough trying to get answers out of people. And then I did eventually find a company in Portugal that would work with us. But it turned out it was like a really big company, and they were just then going to another company. So they were the middleman really, because they obviously knew a company that would do it and they couldn't do it. But so that was a whole fiasco of like trying to deal with both of them, and they were just useless trying to get hold of them. Or I ended up flying out to Portugal and going to meet them, went and met with both of them, and like the communication between them was just atrocious. I was like, well, have you not told them this? And in the end, after that, I was just like, I'm just solely working with that manufacturer who's going to produce the project, because it was just a nightmare it just took years to get them to get it off the ground, really. And then from there, I've now sort of moving manufacturers again, because they're still quite useless at just Europeans just work on a completely different time scale.
Well, obviously anybody who's worked in yachting understands the differences between countries and how they do things and stuff. And I mean, when you told me about what you were creating, like, riding boots that are not made of leather, and I was like, because obviously when you say cork, I'm like, oh, like cork out a bottle, and you were like, no. There's different grades of cork, and it has a lot more uses than you think. And I was like, it was like you were educating me. And obviously, Portugal, it makes sense, is famous for cork, so it makes sense. And obviously, I must have seen, or because I've been on holiday to Portugal, bags made of cork and stuff like that. Yeah. But I'd never put two and two together that. Or even it hadn't. Obviously, the only cork I'm ever interested in is the cork in a wine bottle or a champagne bottle. So my ignorance, that's the only cork that registers in my life, kind of thing. But when she showed me, like, it is incredible that it's. I mean, it looks like leather, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just got that little bit of a more kind of like a fleck of cork in it. But yeah, it feels like leather. It's really cool.
It really is quite an amazing thing. And after all of that rejection, this is what I like about entrepreneurs and stuff, like all of that rejection, all of those emails, then talking to leather companies and they're going, what are you talking about, kind of thing, to just keep ploughing on. What was it about it? Did you just believe that you could do it and you were just going to keep going? Or
I just thought there must be a better way than because I did a lot of research into the leather industry, because I thought I just had to, if I was going to sort of do something that avoided it, I needed to do a load of research into it. And I think people would think of it differently if they actually knew what was going on, or like the environmental impact and sort of the impact for the animals. I think a lot of people would think of it differently. And it's after looking into that, and you sort of look into the food industry and stuff, and just different manufacturing things, I think people don't realise how bad they are, not just for like people's health or the environment and everything else. And there is a lot that is just kind of brushed under the carpet for like the general public not to know. I mean, whatever standpoint you're on or whatever you eat, there is a lot that sort of just is brushed under. So I think from that standpoint, I was just like, I just felt I needed to do something. And I mean, I'm still at that stage where if it doesn't work out or whatever, it was one of those things that I would be more disheartened if I'd never tried. So it was one of those things that I'm just like, I've got to do it, whether it works or not. So that's where we are.
I think it will work. But this is, one of the other things that people tell you about business. It's a lot of effort, but also a lot of money. It's not just, the money. Once you've done the research, you've spent the time, you've designed the product, you've done all of these things, you've put up the cash to maybe get your samples and get that going. And then the costs don't stop there. You've then got to go to shows and then promote it and marketing and everything else, and live. Do you know what I mean? You still have other things going on in your life. Like, it's a huge commitment, which sometimes the return, doesn't come as quickly as you like. But I do 100%, because obviously you've started off with, creating you're going to have to send me, I'll put pictures of the boots. You're going to have to send me some photos of the riding boots and the joddy boots as well. Like, I would really like to wear a pair of the short ones. Thanks. It'd be really nice. I can do advertising for you. They are really lovely, but obviously we're talking about the maritime industry, and you made the connection, which obviously no one thought about.
Yeah. So it is. I mean, I do deck shoes now, so
well, that's what I mean. Like, so you've kind of like we talked about it the other day. Why are deck shoes leather?
Or suede. Like, suede is absolutely like the worst thing as a deck shoe, because as soon as it touches water, it's ruined.
Salt water and leather and suede. Great combination.
Yeah, it's or a pair of Crocs, which are equally the other end of the scale, pretty horrific.
Pretty grim. So you've developed the equine footwear, but you're now branching into deck footwear.
Yes, and a lot of the boats are sort of trying to be sort of more conscious, obviously, with what they're wearing. Obviously, there's a lot more sort of eco yacht chandlers and sort of eco yacht wear coming out. So it just seemed like a natural progression. And people love deck shoes, a lot of horsey people wear deck shoes because you can just slip them on. So that's sort of where the sort of idea came from. And then, they're like so comfy just to slip on your feet, especially on board or whatever. So it seemed like a natural progression, really.
So where are you at with the deck shoe and promoting it? And
yes, I had one batch done, just a very limited run of sort of sizes, just to see what I liked and everything. And they'd been really popular at a couple of the trade shows. And then I've just, obviously moving manufacturers, I've just had a sample off them with some like upgraded soles. So they, I think the soles are a lot nicer and on these now. And then so I'm having another sample of them done to be tested on board a boat. And then hopefully, all going well, should be able to put those into like a full batch production, and then hopefully speak to some sort of yacht chandlers or yacht wear companies, and hopefully be able to push out some sizes for some boats on board. And they come in all different colours, so the boats can have the option to sort of customise them for their boats and everything, which I think would be quite nice as well.
Yeah, well, I know there's a few women like that I would, they would jump at the chance, and I'm sure they would order with you, because that basically, eco-friendly yacht wear is their game. So I'm quite excited about this. I've just had an idea while we're talking, but I'll talk about that after the podcast. So when it comes to business, if a lady's listening to this and she's on board and she's got an idea of a product, what would you say her best starting point is? When it comes to manufacturing, what should be the first?
Probably, sort of have an idea. I'd probably say work and create a buffer, and probably start thinking about it whilst you're on board, sort of do some of the research into it. Try and speak to manufacturers, I think, is the big one, and trying to find a manufacturer that sort of has the same ethos as what you're looking to do, because a lot of them will say, oh yeah, we can do that, and then down the line you're like, this doesn't quite feel right or whatever. So I think a lot of it is just speaking to loads of different manufacturers and kind of what do you get the vibe from the people, and where is it manufactured, a lot of it, because I know we want to get it as manufactured as close to home as possible, and if you can, it's definitely the best thing to do. But then a lot of the time, if you do have to manufacture in sort of China, Bangladesh, Pakistan, all those different countries, and then the importing taxes as well, even from Europe, is astronomical. So it's also, depending on what project you're doing, to look into the implications of where it's coming from, what the tax charges to import it are, and then sort of work out where you should be manufacturing it is a good place to live, because it's not fun when you pay for all your goods, they come over, and then you get a nice import tax bill, and you're like, great.
Yay! Gotta love tax. Got to love tax. It's a buzzword in this country at the moment.
Yeah, Brexit has really just heightened that fun, really. So, which is in a kind of a good sense. I didn't know much before Brexit, so the fact that now I've done it only after Brexit has So it's made things a little bit more simpler in the terms of, if I'd done it before Brexit, I would have been sort of so much more annoyed that now everything's changed. It's so much more expensive. It's just such a faff to do everything now. Whereas I've just had to deal with it because it was the first time I was doing it. But a lot of the time and then sort of being picky with what you want and being really direct. Because a lot of time I was like, I'm going off their advice because I don't know really on a lot of different things, and you do get taken advantage of. So I think if you also got someone to help you, kind of a bit of a mentor as well, I think that definitely helps, because trying to bounce things off yourself sometimes is really difficult. And I mean, there's so many people in the yachting industry or whatever that will, or even in our little clan now, that, I mean, if anyone wanted to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to help anyone, because I've been there and it has been very challenging by yourself sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's been spoken about with a lot of ladies that have gone on to create their own businesses. Incredibly lonely in the beginning. And that can be a real shock to the system, because you go from an extreme team environment to trying to do something on your own, and you soon find out how motivating you are to yourself. So yeah, it is tricky. So from obviously your experience creating a product, and now you've got a few products now. Now you're kind of heading towards the next phase of business, which is promotion, and then ramping it up. In that first bit, like some concept to design to creating the product, what would your 3 bits of advice be to someone?
Get lots of samples, work out. I mean, it is difficult because until something goes to market, you don't know how well it's going to do. So I think as long as you get enough samples to know that you're happy with the product, you like it, you think it works, it does everything it needs to do for you, then get it to market. Then you can tweak it if needs be. I think a lot of the time people spend too much time making it absolutely perfect, sending it to market, and then someone thinks that it needs XYZ, or the customers want XYZ, and then you're takes a bit longer, and you've taken so long to get it to market. So I think sort of getting it to market because I mean, the quicker it gets to market, the quicker you can start earning money back from it. So I think, try and get it to market as quickly as possible, as long as you've done all your due diligence in the terms of like working out costings and all of that jazz, and doing as many samples as you can. And also make sure that manufacturers tend to have a thing where they send you like the nicest samples they could possibly make, and then it comes to actually doing the production run, and they aren't quite as great as the samples were. So I think working out where that stands as well, and sort of sometimes you do have to have a couple of discussions with them about things like that, and making sure that you are covered. If something is not to the standard, will they take it back? Will they send you some new ones? XYZ. Because when you get to that point and they're like, oh no, we're not doing anything, you're like, oh no. Like, it can then be quite a difficult discussion. So I think sort of having those boundaries in place is a good place to start. But yeah, a lot of it is just go for it. I mean, you don't know till you do it, so do it.
That's really good. Really good advice. I think, like I said, it's fab, like that Yachtie can-do attitude. I'm just going to write to here. I'm just going to check this out. And do you know what I mean? Like, just keep going and see how far you get. It is quite incredible. And I have no doubt that it is working, and it's going to work. I really do think they'll be taking it up, because the environmental issue, especially in the yachting industry, perhaps not necessarily in the equine realm, but in the yachting industry, they'll be well up for that kind of product if they can opt for it. So I'm really excited to see what you've got got going on next. So, like, with that in mind, what's Charlotte doing in 5 years? What's the vision for her in 5 years' time?
I think a very stress-free life would be nice.
Right, how do you do that? Can you let me know?
Move to Italy or something and just live in the sun. And just a nice, comfortable life where you're like little stress. I can go out cycling and living my best life, really. I mean, that's the end goal. Whether that happens in 5 years, probably not. But
I love your optimism, though. I really do. I would love that in 5 years, a stress-free life. It'd be lovely. But you were also in business. Not really sure. One or two are conducive with each other, but that's okay. So to finish up, obviously, thank you for sharing your story. Do you have any crazy experiences or memories of your time on board to finish up the call?
I mean, there's quite a lot of crazy ones, probably some that shouldn't be repeated on here. But there was one crazy story where we were out in Doha, and I think it was New Year's Day. When you're out in Doha, the captains had like their own cars. So it was like a whole group of us, so 6, and we had 8 of us or something. We had 2 cars. We went out to the deepest desert in Doha. I have no idea. I just went along for the ride, and we were like just traveling down this desert, and then we were just looking out, like, because we were going to the beach from the desert. And we just looked out and we saw there's a camel, and there was just this one rogue camel just wandering the desert. I mean, usually they go out in like groups or herds or whatever, but there was just this one lone camel, and he just came over to us, and then we just started with some fruit or whatever and stuff, and just started feeding him tomatoes, and he just followed us for ages. This camel, it was just a really surreal moment, just being out in Doha, New Year's Day, going down to the beach, crossing the desert, and just a rogue camel just comes to the car. Yeah, it was just...
Hello. That's really cute. That's really cute. That's why you end up addicted and loving the travel, don't you?
Yeah.
Because those random moments. But that's my first camel story, so I quite like that. Because I always feel that they're quite spitty and everything, but you've obviously met a friendly one.
It was a very friendly camel. But yeah, it was a bit to the stage where we were like, is he okay?
Maybe he just wanted some company.
Yeah.
Just mooching about on his own. Oh, that's really cute. Oh, there you go. Not all camels are spitty. I think, do they spit? They spit, don't they, generally?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's my first camel story. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. We'll definitely get you back on at some point for the next phase of your, obviously, business journey. And we'll definitely have to put up some images of the footwear that you're producing so everybody can have a look. But thank you very much for joining us today.
Lovely. Thank you, Cherise.
So if you've enjoyed this episode, there are many more for you to enjoy. If you need any additional information, we've got the Yacht Crew Yacht Pearls of Wisdom website. We've got loads of information there as well. And we'll speak to you all again soon.